You know what? As an adult who recently rewatched Disney's Tangled, I have to say that they left us with a lot of unanswered questions. Like, as pleasant as the happy ending to the story was, there just seemed to be a few things throughout the movie that were overlooked. For instance, why would Mother Gothel go through all of the trouble of kidnapping Rapunzel and making her believe that they were family, only to have her growing up knowing her actual birthday? I mean, it just feels like Mother Gothel could have avoided a lot of trouble if she had just made up a random date. But that's not even the half of it. As you probably remember, the last time that we got to see Mother Gothel is during the final scene in the tower when Flynn ends up cutting Rapunzel's hair, practically sacrificing himself to free his newfound love from her metaphorical shackles, which had a lot of people curious as to why he didn't let Rapunzel heal him with her powers before he cut her hair. But nevertheless, once her hair was cut through, the weirdest thing happened. Gothel ended up tripping out of the window of the tower, and during her descent, her body began to disintegrate, and by the time she hit the ground, Mother Gothel was nothing but dust. Lucky for Flynn, after Mother Gothel ends up falling and turning into ashes, at least as far as we know, the audience along with Flynn and Rapunzel were surprised to find out that she was still able to heal and save Flynn, thus allowing the two to live happily ever after. This might have seemed like good news at first, however, when you realize that Rapunzel's powers weren't connected to her hair, and actually take a look at the events that happened throughout the movie, you'll see that this leaves a lot of loopholes. And, like, seriously a lot. But actually, the craziest thing is now possible because of these loopholes, and it directly connects to another Disney film in one of the most mind-blowing ways. So be sure to watch until the end to find out all about how Rapunzel's powers not being in her hair could mean that she is much more powerful than we believe, and also how Mother Gothel might not have perished like we thought she had, and in fact, might still be out there. Alright, so not to sound like a broken record here, but as far as we knew it, Tangled was a movie about the Princess Rapunzel whom we believed to have magic hair. The whole time we believed that her beautiful singing paired with her magically glowing golden hair could not only heal someone, but also reverse the aging process. And the whole time we believed that if her hair was cut, it would become not only this brownish shade, but also become ineffective, and essentially die only to never grow again. However, as we've already said, at the end of the film, all of that was proven to be wrong. After begging Gothel to let her heal Flynn in return for her eternal obedience, Flynn cuts off her hair to prevent that from ever happening. This seemingly stripped Rapunzel of her powers, and supposedly killed Mother Gothel. This, of course, is all thrown out the window like Mother Gothel when we find out that Rapunzel had the power inside of her this whole time. We in turn see that Rapunzel's tears have the same healing properties as her hair supposedly did, which means two things. One, she had these magical powers coursing through her the entire movie and not just in her hair. And two, her powers somehow manifest themselves through her bodily fluids. And I feel like we are in Aladdin right now because this just opened up a whole new world of opportunities for Rapunzel. I mean, think about it. The power to heal people and turn back the aging process is coursing through her veins. Every bit of saliva that she spits out would have the ability to save someone's life. She could spit on you, and instead of getting upset, you might have to thank her for it if it saved you. Every time her hands get sweaty, she literally has the power to make someone younger at her fingertips. It's crazy. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And of course, this would extend to other fluids that happen to be produced by the female body, including during pregnancy. That's right. Because of the power she is coursing through her, if Rapunzel were to get pregnant, there is a large chance that the child would be born with similar powers to her mother. I mean, the child would literally be absorbing that magical energy for months, only to be born like her mother, basically immortal. And I mean, considering Rapunzel's powers, I highly doubt that she would have to put up with any of the complications that might arise during pregnancy and labor. She could potentially have an entire family of glowing, golden-haired immortals, and no one could tell her not to. Okay, cool. But why do we care? Well, as it would turn out, this loophole could actually affect another couple of Disney princesses in their reality as well. As you probably already know, Tangled and Frozen take place in the same universe, meaning that things that take place in Rapunzel's world affect Anna and Elsa and their storylines that take place in their shared universe. We talked about this a bit in another video that we posted to the channel a while back, but the proof can be found in the first Frozen film. You can actually spot Rapunzel if you're looking for her. It's during the scene where the kingdom is getting ready for Elsa's coronation ceremony. If you look closely at the crowd of people walking through the doors of the kingdom, you can clearly see a short-haired Rapunzel paying her respects to a fellow noble family. A lot of fans actually believe that the two families are related, but if you're interested in that theory, we'll link our video about it in the description. What's more interesting in this case is that since the two films take place in the same world, it seems safe to say that the things that happen aren't exclusive to their movies. And by that, I mean the fact that we learned in Frozen 2 that Elsa was born into her role as the fifth elemental spirit, and she was born into it by the genes that her mother passed on to her. This means that it would be probable for Rapunzel to pass on similar gifts to one, if not multiple, of her children, should she choose to have any. That being said, what if one of Rapunzel's children turned out to be one of the missing elemental spirits? Maybe one we haven't heard about yet. I mean, think about it. In the real world, we have tons of different cultures, all with different lore and myths behind them. But when you compare them, a lot of their folklore and things of the sort have similarities. For instance, Greece had Zeus, Rome had Jupiter, and India had Dyaus Pitar. All different names and beings, but all were sky gods with essentially the same properties and personality traits. So I guess my point is that the elemental spirits wouldn't be exclusive to Arendelle and Frozen. It's just that they might go by different names in other parts of the world. Now, in the Tangled television series, we heard them talk about the Moonstone and Sundrop as if they were these powerful magical things. Well, what if they were the elemental spirits of the sun or the moon? It wouldn't be much of a stretch to think that they were related to the elemental spirits in some way, considering their powers. And if that's the case, then it would be fair to assume that after having the powers coursing through her body, Rapunzel would pass them on to a child, or children, who would in turn become the embodiment of the sun spirit, since Rapunzel's mother drank the concoction form of the flower that was born from the Sundrop. Some even speculate that Rapunzel herself is the elemental sun spirit, and her having children would simply just continue the line of sun elemental properties, just in the embodiment of people rather than a flower. Much like how Elsa is the embodiment of the ice spirit after it passed down to her from her mother through childbirth. Now, as cool as that would be, we are still left with a rather large plot hole in Tangled, and that is surrounding the apparent death of Mother Gothel. You see, the movie makes it seem sort of cut and dry. Rapunzel's hair gets cut, and that in turn causes Mother Gothel to wither away into dust. But doesn't that imply that after having her hair cut, anyone else who is saved by her would also have the effects reversed? As a matter of fact, wouldn't that even potentially extend to the flower itself, and anyone who had been healed by its powers? I mean, if Gothel went back to suffering from her pre-Rapunzel afflictions, then shouldn't Flynn and her mother sort of meet the same fate? I mean, this clearly didn't end up happening, as we see Rapunzel reunite with her mother and father, and Flynn joins them to live happily ever after. And on top of that, as we talked about before, Rapunzel's powers never actually went away. They just faded from her hair after it had gotten cut. Which begs the question, what happened to Mother Gothel? Why did she just turn to dust? Well, what if we told you that she didn't? This is Disney after all, and it seems like a lot of their female antagonists turn out to be some sort of enchantress or witch. Not only that, but if you look at the Tangled series, the small appearances that Mother Gothel makes in the background could also support the idea that she is still alive. One of the episodes that caught our attention was called What the Hair, and in it, Rapunzel has a nightmare that Gothel returns. In the nightmare, Mother Gothel brags about her return and summons the thorn rocks that appeared when Rapunzel's hair mysteriously returned. A very subtle appearance, yet one that could totally point to the fact that Mother Gothel is still alive. If she were actually a witch, she could have sent Rapunzel this vision or dream, maybe even trying to coax her out of the castle to get her hands on her. There are actually more sightings of Gothel in the series that could point to her being a witch, but for the sake of time, let's just say that Mother Gothel was actually a witch, and she just kept that part of her life hidden from Rapunzel to keep her from asking questions. Maybe she was afraid that if Rapunzel had found out that she was a witch, Rapunzel might look at her differently. Like, maybe the term witch has sinister undertones, much as it does in most cultures and societies. She was clearly worried about Rapunzel finding out her true identity, so it is safe to assume that she wasn't as forthcoming with who she really was when she raised Rapunzel. And that's most likely why she seemed so afraid when Rapunzel found out that she wasn't her real mother. Remember? Gothel tried to play it cool and get Rapunzel to trust her, but when she felt that she couldn't, she immediately became aggressive and tried to take Rapunzel out of the picture. Now, some fans still ask the question, if she was some sort of powerful witch or enchantress, why didn't she just take Rapunzel by force? Well, maybe she planned to be more forceful, but when Gothel saw the opportunity to use Flynn's life in exchange for Rapunzel's compliance, she figured it would be easier that way. But when Flynn cut Rapunzel's hair, perhaps it somehow weakened Gothel instead of killing her. And in her weakened state, instead of staying and attempting to fight, perhaps she just decided to run away. This would mean instead of being dead, Mother Gothel is most likely just lurking away in the background, lying in wait as she tries to figure out a way to get some of her power back from Rapunzel without getting caught. It's a lot harder to steal bodily fluids than it is to brush your fake daughter's hair. So Gothel would know that she has to be smarter if she were to try again. This seems like it could be a decent setup for a Tangled 2, if they ever chose to do one. It could involve the return of Mother Gothel, and perhaps even incorporate the birth of Rapunzel's possibly magical children. But what do you guys think? Is that even possible at all? And if it is, would you want to see it in Tangled 2? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. As for now, that's all, Disney fans. Let us know what video you'd like to see next in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.